Well, we have a caller who's been patiently waiting, so if we can bring that caller in. Hello, are you there, Paul?
I sure am.
Well, hello from Charlotte, North Carolina. Is it warmer down there?
Of course it is.
Hey, it's warm here today.
It is.
It was almost
5.
5.
Almost 5.
It was almost 5
Centigrade.
Celsius.
Centigrade.
So, well, Paul, we've got Sebastian back with some sound, and we've talked a little bit about culture and creativity, and what would you like to ask?
Well, let's go a little current, and I want to say hi to everybody, and especially shout out to Randah, my fellow lucky 7. I'm one of the slackers who did it in the normal 2 years versus the 9 minutes that Randah took to go through the program. I'm trying to take a current perspective on this. Right now, especially in the U.S., we see our customers really hunkering down. People are conserving capital, they're cutting training, they are waiting to see what happens. To a creative person, this feels like exactly the opposite of what they should be doing. I keep seeing occasionally in the press mentions of it's creativity and innovation that's going to get us out of this mess that we're in. So I'm wondering if anybody is seeing from among their companies and organizations here in the U.S. or abroad, is there anyone taking that notion that we need to be more involved in creativity and innovation now so that we're ready when the economy finally lifts itself out?
Yes.
No one. Okay.
No, Paul, honestly, hi, it's Marci. I am seeing people absolutely open to getting some new ideas, and there's politics in the way of them doing that often within organizations, especially if they're within an industry that's rather heavily scrutinized by the public. To be seen as doing something like that could be considered as a waste of money, and the stockholders aren't very happy with it. So most of us are not going to hear about it through the normal means. It's if you know people who are working inside of an organization, then you hear about it, and then there's an opportunity to come in and help them on that mission. But I'm seeing people taking an optimistic rather than a pessimistic perspective, at least in the client groups that I'm working with.
And then I may not be seeing it as much because I'm sitting in the middle of Charlotte, North Carolina, which is the former Wachovia and Bank of America, and a lot of people huddled under their desks right now.
Well, I got to tell you something. I recently had a conversation with a fellow whose name is Bob Johnston, who was in the program many, many, many years ago. And he was taking a look at the World Creativity and Innovation Week site, and he said, Marci, I'm of two emotions here. On one side, I am ecstatic that this is happening, and this is quite a vision. On the other hand, it scares me to death. And I said, why? And he said, well, Enron did some pretty creative things, and the terrorists did some pretty creative things. And I just looked at him and I said, Bob, you know what? I'm coming at this with a Canadian perspective, and those aren't exactly on the tops of our minds, right? So it's with that going forward to think about happy thoughts and what it is that we can do to move forward, and what's one small thing. This is how I end all my presentations, is what's one small thing that you can do that if everyone did, your environment would be a more creative place to work. Mm-hmm. What's one small thing? And in some instances, we'll talk about it. In some instances, it's a private, right? What's one small thing? And most of the time they go, huh, yeah. So what I've discovered is people are open to the notion of being introduced to the idea that maybe they could generate some new ideas. And they're open to the notion of having somebody come in and maybe have a conversation with them or make a presentation to a team or something like that. Are they ready immediately to jump full force into an 18-month program that's going to transition their environment? No. Because as you said, they're tightening up and so on. But what they do need to have is some kind of confidence in the individuals with whom they're going to be working. And there also needs to be, and you've heard this before, a champion within the organization who strongly supports what it is that you're doing moving forward. And it's really helpful when it's the CEO. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's really helpful. Now, getting to the CEO And that's why networking is important, right? So I'm staying optimistic, and I want you to stay optimistic too, because it'll happen. It'll really happen for you.
Okay.
Thank you, Marci. We've been thinking here about how to reframe the conversation from using those words like creativity, which translate differently, even right within English, much less in other countries, and trying to frame it in terms of, as Sebastian said earlier, into results or into proactivity or some provocative statement to get them thinking forward when everyone is tightening now.
Okay, well, Paul, I'll tell you how I talk about creativity is new ideas, imagination, and new decisions. And then I'll ask them, could they use some new ideas? Are you open to sprinkling a little bit of imagination in there? And is it time for you now to start making some new decisions? And generally, I get yes to all three of those. Works.
Thank you, Marci.
You're welcome.
Just a quick follow-on. Is anybody seeing, from any of those of you who are working internationally, what's the climate like out there these days?
Sebastian, can you hear?
Where?
Oh,
Yeah, definitely. I'll be glad to answer that. And I might just say as well that it's 20 degrees here.
Aww.
Wait a minute, is that Celsius?
That's Celsius.
Yes,
Oh, that's
yes.
wonderful. Oh, it's like 80
Beautiful.
degrees.
Yeah.
Look, just building on what Marci said. By the way, here we are, a lot of organizations are literally in fear. And just for example, Holden Motors, which is part of GM, I was talking to the OD manager of that company, and she said, all I'm doing is change management, reassuring people, which again is a great opportunity to bring in the creativity into change management. I think here there are a number of opportunities. The first one that I wanted to mention briefly is connecting people to the emotional side of organizations. And I think some of the work that I've done on different people around emotional intelligence and so forth, I think that provides a great opportunity, because although the emotions might not be positive in that sense, I believe emotions are emotions, full stop. It tells you something about where you're at. But they're very useful to bond and to connect people. And I think the key at the moment is to connect people, to collaborate, to creative action. So one of the things that I found very useful is to assist people in the organizations to connect with the people that have not been connecting so far. Customers, suppliers, and arrange face-to-face forums are very important, where people can share that fear, that uncertainty, that doubt. That's extremely bonding. And you'll see that people for the first time connects with certain suppliers, customers, and that in itself, it is very positive, because new possibilities start to come up as they give each other feedback. Is a cycle of offers and requests that goes on. And people invariably come up with different things. So the key, I think, is to who could we connect now in those times of uncertainty, fear, even perhaps despair, because people think they're going to lose their jobs, that have not connected before, or connecting still with people that we've been connecting, but in a different way. What kind of conversations we have not had, which would be conducive to collaborative action and to creative action. So, I think all in all, agreeing with what Marci said earlier, I think is a great opportunity to unleash the creativity that is latent out there.
Great. Well, Paul, we want to thank you for calling in and being patient with the technology problems that were occurring.
You're welcome. Thanks for everybody
All right.
for your
Thanks,
perspective.
Paul.